It is expected that the first shipment of the COVID-19 vaccine will arrive Nigeria in a moment from now. The Minister of Health, Osage Hanire, says that the country will receive about 20 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine. Now, while the need for cold storage of vaccine may be the biggest challenge for the continent, there is also a call for a local clinical trial of the vaccines before administration. In all, how prepared is Nigeria? These are the questions on the minds and the lips of every Nigerian when the issue of vaccines coming in is being asked. Joining me via Skype to discuss this is Dr. David Oladele, public health physician, Clinical Sciences Department, Nigerian Institute of Medical Research. It's nice to have you join me right now, Doctor. And we also have Professor of Pharmacognosy, Faculty of Pharmacy, Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, and Nigeria National Coordinator, Western Africa Network of Natural Products Research Scientist, Professor Joseph Agbedahunsi. Professor, it's nice to have you join me as well.
Thank you very much.
Great. Now, let's start from somewhere right now. Nigerians have been expecting the COVID-19 vaccine, and some are excited, others are suspicious, others have different, in fact, some are saying they will not take the vaccine, others are saying they can't wait for it. From your perspective, tell me first, before we go into the issues around it, what are you hearing from the people generally? Are they excited, especially in the medical world? Are they excited that the vaccine will come and then the pressure of work is expected to reduce? What's the feeling?
Good morning.
Thank you, Professor. I'm starting with you, Professor.
Yes, thank you very much. You see, personally too, I have a mixed feeling concerning the vaccines. And one of the challenges is what you have just said, is as regards the storage facility. And I believe because one of these things is that many of these drugs, if you don't store them very well, they will lose their potency. What are we doing? And some of them, like the Pfizer one, requires minus 70 degrees centigrade storage. Fortunately, I learned that that of Johnson & Johnson. Another thing is that before coming to Johnson & Johnson, another thing is that you find out that the people, many of these, like the Pfizer vaccine, you have to repeat it after about 3 weeks or so. How are we sure that the people that will take it will come back? But Johnson & Johnson is making another vaccine now, a COVID vaccine, that you will take only once. And I think that one may be able to go for us. But the major problem is the problem of the storage.
Storage.
Yes, that is, and so that we will not just be puncturing ourselves with inefficacious drugs. So that is my major challenge now.
Okay. All right, Professor, we'll come back to you on this. Let me bring Dr. David Oladele into the discussion now. Dr. Oladele, Professor has said that he is, Professor Agbedahunsi has said that he has concerns regarding the storage when it comes to the specifications and all of that. From your end, I wonder what you're seeing and what concerns you have.
Well, thank you very much for having me. The issue of the storage is a serious concern because some of the vaccines need extremely very low temperature. And Nigeria don't have that facility. Only some very few centers have minus 80 freezers that can be used for this. Now, even if you store it at these centers, how do you ensure cold chain when you want to share the virus in the community or give it around? So the issue of the storage is very important and it's a very germane issue. Albeit that some other virus and some other vaccines that might not need that storage, in that lower temperature requirement for its administration. Besides the issue of the storage, the other issue we need to look at is the general apathy, both in the public and even among some doctors. Saying that coronavirus, the novel disease, we've not had this before. And some of the vaccines that have been tried use some mechanism that has not been used before. And people are generally not too sure what it is. But when we have an emergency like COVID-19 that is claiming life, it will be unethical not to try to do some things to control the pandemic. So I believe that is why the WHO gave the emergency use listing to this, so that we could actually try something. And in the process, be able to do something to control the pandemic. The general fear or the concern is true, but the world, we have to do something about it. So that's my take on that. Thank you.
Yeah, let me stay with you, Dr. Ladili. The point there is a call for clinical trials of whatever is being brought in to ascertain the fact that it is actually what they claim it is before it is administered on Nigeria. What, from the perspective of medicine, what is likely to happen?
Well, it is a very dire situation. I use the word dire because opinions are divided on this. I've watched carefully opinion of Nigerian societies, scholars on this. And it's divided between we need to do a trial, we don't need to do a trial. Generally speaking, when WHO give like the emergency use listing for a device or a vaccine, it simply means that this can be used and it's been approved to be used to handle an emergency like we have the COVID-19 pandemic. And we know that most countries in the Western region have started this vaccine. And even in India, they are beginning to start vaccinating their citizens using some of this vaccine. So the issue of whether we need to do clinical trial or not, in my personal opinion, I see some missed opportunities. This is my personal opinion. How do I mean by missed opportunities? At the beginning of the pandemic, May, April, June last year, there was a serious race to get a vaccine. And as a country, if we are really serious then, we should have been able to empower our researchers to develop vaccine. But we missed this. Then along the line, some big pharma and some countries developed vaccine, and they were willing to start clinical trial. And late last year, there were a lot of outcry that they want to use African as guinea pig. So we missed on the opportunity to test some of this vaccine who has entered the third phase. Actually, you have about 4 phases of clinical trial. The first phase of the trial is to see how it is, whether it is safe, and to look at the dose. Second phase, phase 2A and 2B, is to see how effective it is. Phase 3, you are testing the effectiveness in a larger population. That is what has been done for some of the vaccine that's entering, that are being used currently. So at this phase, they want to do a multi-center, multi-country trial. But Nigeria missed out of this because we were not involved. We didn't take part. And in Africa, maybe just some countries in South Africa were part of this. So we missed this opportunity. And now some of these vaccines that have been tried and found to be used to have some effectiveness from 70 to about 95 are being given. And now we are crying that before we can use it in Nigeria, we need to do a local trial. It is unlikely that this company who has spent money to do this vaccine will subject or would like to subject it to clinical trial in Nigeria when they have data from some other African countries. So that is why it might not be able. And I'm sure that's what NAFDAC came out and said that when the vaccine comes to Nigeria eventually, they will do some preliminary tests and go ahead to administer it. They might not be able to do clinical trial. Why? Because when WHO gives emergency use listing of any vaccine or any product, you don't do clinical trial. You just, the local regulatory agency and the expert will decide on what needs to be done. But be that is made, there are about 50 other vaccine candidates in the process. So I think if, as a country, we want to really latch in on this, we can see how we can do a clinical trial of some of these other potential vaccine candidates in Nigeria, so we can have a local data urban experience. Right. Some of the argument given is that,
Okay, Dr. Oladele, let me put you on hold and bring in Professor Agbedahunsi here. Now, Professor, the point is, before now, several Nigerians, not even Nigerians alone, several African countries came up with their own breakthrough one way or the other when it comes to vaccines. They claim had the efficacy to suppress on one hand, or maybe even vaccinate against or inoculate against COVID-19. We didn't see the light of the... I remember we had you on the show several times talking about some of the claims locally. What is the way, what is it with all of those local remedies right now?
Thank you very much. I may bold to say that in Nigeria, our government is not serious. Many of these countries that you are talking about, India, Israel, very many of them, they are producing theirs. In Nigeria, and all these things must be backed with finance, with money. How much has Nigerian government given to research scientists in Nigeria to facilitate research that will bring this? We are waiting for people to bring theirs. That is the problem. We wrote lots of proposals for grants, and very many Nigerian scientists had done this. There was a TED fund brought out that we should write proposals. We did. What has come out of it? Nothing. You see, that we are not really very, very serious in Nigeria. I must make bold to say that the proposal that we sent to TED Fund for funding, TED Fund did not fund that research, but South Africa funded that research. You see, we are not really very, very serious. If we had been a very, very serious country, by now, knowing fully when we started to hear about this vaccine, minus 70, minus that need cold storage, by now Nigeria should have been put that into getting facilities that will be able to handle this. Will the people come to Lagos, or will people go to Abuja? Or how do you want to administer those vaccines to our people that are in the villages? Or does that mean that we don't have elderly people in our villages? These are some of the challenges. We are not really serious in Nigeria. And there are lots of, I believe in remedies. There are lots of remedies, and that's one of the reasons why COVID-19 has not dealt with us the way it's dealing with them in the European countries and in America, because of the remedies. And I believe there are natural products that our people are using to ameliorate the effects of COVID-19. And I think that honestly, that should be an area that we should really look into. We should really look into, and they are doing that in some West African countries too.
All right, let me stay with you, Professor. Now, the point there is, a lot of people, like you said earlier, a lot of people are asking questions whether Nigeria is actually ready concerning, or especially regarding these vaccines that are coming in, that are specifications when it comes to the temperature. They must remain at the point where they are being administered. Is it another case of Nigeria not being serious, or what do you make of that? Because the Ministry of Health is saying that we're expecting about 20 million doses already. They've placed the order, and it cost Nigeria so much to invest into that. What are you seeing from that perspective? How ready are we? Professor.
Well, because I'm not in government, I'm not in the Federal Ministry of Health, I don't know the plans that they have. But as a member of the public, I have not seen the effort that Nigeria is making for the storage of this, because you really know it is technical. There are some drugs I know of. Take, for example, insulin. If you don't use it, it requires cold storage. If you don't use it at the appropriate, if you expose it, you find out that that drug will become impotent. It will not be effective. So that is my fear. If before we bring in those vaccines, I want to think that all the centers where those vaccines will have been administered, the government by now should have been able to get all those refrigerators that refrigerators that go to minus 80, minus 70. We have only one in my faculty, in the Faculty of Pharmacy in Ife. We have only one. And that one, it is brought, we got the grant from abroad. So, and I know that, I mean, it is not, people will not be coming to the faculty and to be able to administer them. So these are some of the things, there's some of the challenges that I envisage, but I don't know what the government is doing actually concerning this.
All right, Dr. Oladile, let me come to you on this. Now, the point there is a talk about the need for collaboration between African countries because they seem to have a similar terrain, similar situation, similar issues and similar cases. Talk to us basically, what kind of collaboration is going on, if there is any?
Well, I'm not able to say much about that, but I understand the fact that collaboration is very important in research and also in public intervention, because we can actually learn from what has been done elsewhere. I'm sure that some institutions have collaboration with other institutions with regards to some of these that we're discussing, but not as a country. In my institution, we currently work with different agencies to see how they can help us to mainstream some of the invention we made in diagnosis of COVID-19 and some of the work we are trying to do with regard to getting a vaccine. That is at institutional level, but it is very, very important. It serves many purposes. It builds the capacity of local researchers. It helps us to share experiences. It helps us to know how best to approach things. We can learn from what they've done, and they can learn from us. So it's very important. And like Professor Radley mentioned, most of the facilities, the infrastructure we have for research in different institutions, universities in Nigeria is through North-South collaboration. They are from grants from maybe NIH, some other institutions, not as it were, really from the Prime Minister, the federal government of Nigeria, which underscored the fact that we need to invest more money into developing infrastructure. For example, we are really going to build vaccine and get vaccine out there and get the kind of vaccine to work. We need infrastructure. And it is not cheap. It's very, very expensive. But in my personal opinion, I think the challenge we have in Nigeria is that research and development is not in our culture. Because when you do like a strict clinical trial, it is not all the time that you get the right results that you're looking for. A clinical trial can end in 3 different ways. You can stop it because it's effective. It can be stopped because it is not safe. It can be stopped because it is almost useless for futility. And for most of the drug and vaccine that we see that work, there are so many that did not pass those tests. But as it were in Nigeria, what we like to do most of the time, we want things that we can point onto. We can point, okay, we've done this. We don't want to invest in intangible things like research that we might do and not get the result that we need at the right time. But most of the collaboration that I'm glad we had with institutions in Africa and in the West has been able to invest some of this. I was involved in the physical clinical trial 2004 that was sponsored by the NIH grant, and the clinical trial ended in futility, meaning that we could not get results to say the candidate microbicide then, one of the HIV prevention system we were testing, was effective. But it was a good experience. We learned, we built capacity, and that is what research and development is. Money must be invested to build capacity. So you can now continue to work on that until you get something that works. So collaboration is very important, like Rete has, and we need to do more in this regard. Albeit Nigeria must lead. So most of the time, it is the funder that give money to Nigeria to do to Nigeria to work. And like you said, you ever play the pipe, dictate the tune. So you have to work. You work in line with what the donor wants you to do. And usually they take the data away. You don't own the data because they sponsor it. So Nigeria needs to get to a state that we begin to actually sponsor research, and so that we can own the data locally, and we can use that to inform and solve our peculiar local challenges. That's my take on that.
Okay, Professor Agbedansi, let me come to you on this. The point there is, we've heard a lot of people, or several people, say that it seems there is an imposition of this vaccine on African countries, and considering the fact that when you're talking about the cold room or the cold chain that you were talking about, like Dr. Oladile just said, we don't have the infrastructure for all of that, but yet these drugs are being imported into the country. Do you have a feeling, or do you have any assessment that it could be imposed on the African continent, considering your earlier fears that you said?
I listened to the head of CDC about 2 days ago, or through Channels Television, and what he said frightened me. And what did he say? He said, look, that there may be a time when you don't take this vaccine, you may be denied traveling rights, that you may not be able to go to Mecca, according to him. You may not be able to go to Rome, according to him. You may not, somebody now, if you don't want to go to any of these places, about it. So you find out that that is the thing. But of what use, my fear is, of what use are you taking a drug or vaccine that is impotent? That is my fear. Concerning the collaboration that you mentioned, I learned that there is a collaboration along the WAHO, a West African Health Organization. I think there is somebody in Ghana. That group, they are looking at these vaccines and all those things. So that collaboration along the West African region, that collaboration, I think it exists.
Okay, all right. We'll look forward to more impact in that regard. Dr. Oladele, as we round off now, if steps have to be taken to correct some of the things that you talked about, what do you think it will be? Because some people from analysis are saying Nigeria is not taking its leadership position on the African continent when it comes to some of these things. You mentioned earlier that in the earlier stages where these things were being tried, and Nigeria was not among some of the countries. If we have to change that narrative, where do you think we have to start from?
Well, I think we need to just retrace our step. We can try from the top down and also bottom-up approach. But let me start the bottom-up approach. I want Nigerian researchers to begin to build their capacity, learn from best practices all over the world to do things. But for them to do this, that's why the government's coming. There's need for an enabling environment. The government needs to provide all the required infrastructure for training, for research, and for development. So I think it's not too late for us to start. It's never too late, even with the current vaccine that is being imported. And if Nigerian government is serious about it, we stay at the phase 4 clinical trial, in which case you do pharmacovigilance and you test. So there must be a control means of, if it's available, to give it to people and monitor the side effects critically and have a means of correcting any abnormality we can find along the line. So that can be done. And I think, like Prof. Riley mentioned earlier on, there's a need for us to change our paradigm when it comes to research and development, especially public health intervention. Nigeria needs to do more. The West African nations coming together. Also, African CDC has some collaboration too, regards to COVID-19 vaccine, and we're trying to join some other organizations like COVAX, which is supposed to make vaccine available when it is found to be safe and effective. But Nigeria need to play our active. But to do this, we need to be very serious. Let me just digress a bit and talk about the prevention method, the non-pharmaceutical method of prevention. If you go around Lagos today, most people are not adhering to this method. Why? Because I think the drive at the top is not strong enough. People don't wear face masks except in some close places. In fact, during the recent holiday, I saw some mega churches, people are not wearing face masks, and some other places. So if you cannot enforce wearing of face masks, social distancing, then how do we want to do things as technical as vaccine that required a lot of processing from the story to the coaching? So I think we need to do more.
All right. Thank you. We have to leave you here now. Thank you so much, Dr. David Oladele, Public Health Physician and Clinical Science Department, Nigeria Institute of Medical Research. We thank you so much. And Professor Joseph Agbedansi, thank you so much for joining us, Professor of Pharmacognosy, Faculty of Pharmacy of Bafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. Thank you so much for joining us, both of you.
Thank you very much.